What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Tobacco Talk Live. I'm Cigar Show Tim, and I've got one of my good buddies from the industry here, Miguel Schoedel from Crowned Heads, Ace Prime, all those different things. And we're just going to hang out with all of you. So jump in the comments and let us know you're here, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. We'll throw them up here. We've got John Pipes already. Good evening, all. Enjoying a Crowned Heads Jericho Hill for the occasion. Miguel, that sounds familiar. Why does that sound familiar to me?
I'm smoking a Jericho Hill right now as well.
There you go. So this is part of the Cigar Community Builders. We both belong to the group on Facebook, and it gives the industry an opportunity to come together, to join together, to really create the unity that the industry needs. No, none of this turf war stuff or, oh, that's my, this or that. It's just the community supporting the community. And I love being a part of it, and I know you do too. But
absolutely.
For anybody that's not familiar with you or your story, we can go through as much as you want to of it, but, go through a quick rundown of who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Miguel Schoedel. I'm the national sales manager for Crowned Heads Cigars. We also distribute Ace Prime cigars as well here in the United States and abroad. I've spent 20 years in the premium cigar industry, all on the manufacturing side. I had stints with C.A.O. Cigars when it was family owned by the Ozgener family. I was with the Toraño Family when it was owned by Charlie Toraño and his family. Spent a little time with a little company called Duran, really kind of cut my teeth on the international side of the business with him. And then when my good friends Mike and John, who were executives at C.A.O. Cigars under the Ozgener family, told me they needed a national sales manager, I joined them to kind of get the band back together, if you will. And it's been about 20 years in the business, and I truly consider myself very blessed to be in this industry. And I consider it an honor to carry the flag of premium hand-rolled cigars, the culture, everything that goes along with it, and keeping it alive for the next generation.
That's awesome. So being with Crowned Heads, Ace Prime doing the distribution for them, and Tabacalera Pichardo and all those different things, you get to interact, engage, and work with a lot of different people along the process, from Luciano, and what he's got going on, to what John's working on with Crowned Heads. What's it like having a multifaceted sort of portfolio, but yet under one umbrella?
Well, it's very complex in the sense that, Crowned Heads, we work with 4 different manufacturers, right? So we work with Ernesto Perez Carrillo, EPC. His factory is called Tabacalera La Alianza. It's in Santiago, Dominican Republic, TLA for short. We work with My Father Cigars, the Garcia family. We work with Drew Estate, Willie Herrera, their master blender. And we work with Luciano and Iradio Pichardo from Tabacalera Pichardo, Ace Prime. And so that alone, for a sales operation, there's a lot of moving parts within that. Every manufacturer has their own distinct blending style, their own tobaccos that they like to use and utilize. So John is the creative force behind everything we do in the company. So as far as ideas, he'll always bounce ideas off the team, myself, Mike Conder's business partner. But John really kind of heads it up, and my goal is really to kind of take his vision and make sure that vision is shared to our reps as well as to our retailers and ultimately the consumer. And then with Luciano, we distribute the Ace Prime product. And with Luciano, it's really neat because Luciano obviously has his hands involved in the factory, so it continues to educate me on tobacco manufacturing processes. And because they own their own factory, we're able to do some smaller projects for retailers around the country. And it's unique because Crowned Heads has been established we're going on our 11th year as Crowned Heads. So it's a very established company, but we continue to grow and continue to expand. And then you have Ace Prime, who's newer to the industry, so we're building a brand. So it's really very different. But at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. And some people may think your ultimate goal is to sell more cigars. Ultimately, what our goal is to add more to the industry than we take. Right. So we want to leave the industry a better place than when we first came in the industry, all of us. And that's truly how both companies feel. And, John Huber, you're talking early 90s, he joined CAO, the Ozgener family. Mike Condor got into business in 1980. He was a VP of sales for General Cigar for many, many years. And then Mike ended up as an executive at CAO. And obviously they sold the company the Ozgener sold the company CAO to STG, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, that ended up owning Swedish Match or the other groups, whatever they are, who ultimately end up with General and everything. So, it's really just about adding more to the industry, and Mike and John bringing all their years of expertise finally into their own company. They've worked for other companies, and Crowned Heads is their baby, and we've seen it really grow and mature into a really well-respected brand in the industry.
Yeah, it's got to be, for somebody on the outside, it's probably got to be a daunting task to think, okay, you're not just taking care of, one manufacturer and all of their SKUs and taking care of all of that, but you've got all the different, multiple arteries in and out of information, of orders, of taking care of all of that. Explain as with your role with the manufacturing company, with, the brands, what is your role and how does that work? Because it's pretty unique because of all the different arms.
Yeah, so any role of any national sales manager, really your first role is to manage your sales force. Now, some companies have brokers that they use. Those are independent salespeople that represent multiple brands. Some companies have direct reps where all the reps work in-house and only represent your brand. We have kind of a hybrid system, as many companies do nowadays. So we have 2 brokers, and then we have 5 in-house sales guys. And it's really about balancing, making sure that John and Mike's vision and Luciano's vision, that those visions get spread out to our reps and our brokers, that the information is spread out there, and ultimately we build rapport with retailers, rapport with consumers. So doing events, organizing specials. For me, a big part of my role also is international sales. So I handle Belgium, Germany, Canada. We're just opening Hong Kong, China. And facilitating really any issues. So, my day-to-day is really working with our sales guys if there's a problem, if there's an issue, or directing them how I want them to work their territory, or when we have a special, or we're trying to get the new cigar in people's hands, coming up with different ways that we can make that happen. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's really being that shoulder for a retailer can go to, and if they need something special that goes beyond what the rep does. My job is to make sure that our brand is communicated and represented properly, and that we're doing best practices, that we're doing right by the retailer, right by the consumer, and making sure that image or that story is really brought into fruition out there. And so that's kind of my day-to-day as a national sales manager. Most other national sales managers do the same thing. If there's a special project, let's say a retailer's having a very special, maybe it's the 50th anniversary of their store's been in business, and they want to do a small run of cigars, I'd help facilitate that. And just trying to make sure that the product gets in the hands of the end consumer, and ultimately they enjoy it, and they connect with us through social media and through events, and just making sure that the brand is in a good place. That's really the best way I can describe my kind of day-to-day responsibilities with Crowned Heads or any company that I've represented in the past,
Right. And we talked a little bit about this before we went live, talking about some of the icons in the industry. Who are a few of your mentors or icons within the cigar industry?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Jono Ozgener. Rest in peace. Jono Ozgener, if anybody knows C.A.O, those are his initials. Jono is how you pronounce it, but it's spelled C-A-N-O. His middle name started with an A, and his last name's Ozgener. A lot of people think of C.A.O, if they're newer to the industry, the last 10 years or so, they think of Ricky Rodriguez. But when we were there, it was family owned. Ricky was with General and La Gloria Cubana. And Jono, to me, is really, he lived the American dream. He was from Turkey. He was from Istanbul. Okay. And obviously a lot of meerschaum pipes came from Turkey. Majority of the best meerschaum come from there. And when he moved to New York to study, and then ultimately he ended up as an engineer for DuPont in Nashville, Tennessee, this little short man from Turkey living in Nashville, Tennessee. and he was a pipe smoker. That's what he enjoyed in his youth. That's what he enjoyed smoking, and he would hang out at pipe shops, and people would ask him for his pipes, and he started selling pipes, and then as just a side gig, and he started putting his initials in them, C.A.O., and that turned into a real business. He wound up leaving DuPont, starting C.A.O. pipe company, pipe tobacco, humidors, and eventually got into cigars. And by the time I left C.A.O., we were 99% premium cigar, 1% pipe tobacco.
Hmm.
And so John Ozgener, to me, he was the kind of guy who could walk into a room, and I mean, he was very short. I mean, he couldn't have been taller than 5'5". I mean, he was a very,
Oh,
very
wow.
short man. And he was the kind of guy who would just off the cuff could tell you a story, could tell you something very inspirational. And he's a guy that means the world to me. I got to go when he passed away. I was invited to go to a celebration of life in Nashville and with the family. And I consider that a great honor. He was a guy I looked up tremendously to, is just an absolute legend in the pipe and in the cigar world.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived the American dream, right? He started this pipe company in his garage.
Hmm.
His kids would pack the boxes. He invented several things for meerschaum pipes that he was responsible for. He was an engineer, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then started a cigar company that blew up, became this mega brand, independent brand, and wind up selling it for a whole lot of money. And I mean, that's the immigrant dream, right? Come here and make
Absolutely.
good, get back to America more than you take, and do the right thing. And so he is probably the one I look up to the absolute most. But I mean, I could name so many guys: Benjamin
Sure.
Menendez, old man Toraño, Charlie Toraño, his son, another guy I look up to. And I think alive, as far as guys that are alive right now, I think Ernesto Perez Carrillo is probably one of the most captivating people you could meet in this business. I mean, he is a guy who, if you can sit down with one person, I've seen it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at multi vendors where Jonathan Drew is there, and the whole crowd, there's all these brand owners, but the crowd is
Yep.
focused on him. And I've seen him geek out talking to Ernesto. I've seen Pete Johnson, Tatuaje,
Mm-hmm.
who is not a young guy, but he's not an old guy, but
Right.
he will become one of those legends in his business.
Yes.
But I've seen him geek out talking to Ernesto. Ernesto is, I think, one of the last of the Mohicans. His generation, a lot of those guys have passed away, and he is a gem. He is an absolute treasure to our industry. And
Yep.
if you can ever sit down with him and talk off camera, just life and cigars and tobacco, he is absolutely captivating.
Yeah, he's absolutely an icon, and I had the pleasure when cigar mechanic Brandon Wells and I were doing our Down to the Nub live shows a couple years ago. It was the week leading up to the actual release of Pledge, and we sat backstage before coming on, kind of thing, in the background, and just chatted with him, and we're talking. I just thought, you know what, it reaffirms how much of a down to earth guy he is. But how he's willing to engage in a conversation really with anybody, because to him this is his life. This is what he's done. This is, he's left an indelible mark on the industry, and he's not even done yet. And so he's just a cool, down to earth guy. That when I agree with you, when it is his time to no longer be alive, and he passes on, that it will be a massive loss to the industry.
Yeah, I mean, he is the influence he's had on so many of the cigar makers. It's really amazing, and just his stories. I mean, you got to remember. I tell everyone who's in the cigar business now. I meet a lot of young guys that got in over the last 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in about 20. I meet guys that have recently got into cigar smoke, and I always remind them to look at some of these older guys, because guys like Ernie kept the midnight oil burning through the 80s, which was a very tough time for the premium cigar industry in the United States. The industry was dying.
Yeah.
Old man Toraño told Charlie, and old man Toraño's passed on as well.
Right.
in the late 80s said, son, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree, be a lawyer, do something, because this industry is dead, it's dying.
Yeah.
And no one saw the boom in 92 that came, right? And
Yeah.
so these guys that were around that kept it burning in the 70s and 80s, where this industry could have absolute died, those guys I have the utmost respect for, because those guys weren't rocking Patek Philippe watches, they weren't driving Mercedes. Those guys were literally living to pay their bills through selling cigars, and to see the success a lot of those guys had before they passed on, and to see the success that Ernie's had is truly amazing. And I tell all the young guys, listen, we all make really cool cigars, but don't forget to check out the old guys, the established guys, the guys that have been around a long time.
Oh yeah, they paved the way for what's going on right now.
100%.
Yep. So, and I didn't share what I'm smoking. We talked about yours initially, but I dug through my humidor knowing that I had, some Crowned Heads and some different things. Almost pulled out a Fiat Lux because I absolutely love that cigar. It was my number one cigar of the year last year.
Yeah.
And my jaw hit the floor, as I was telling you before we went on. I found two of the Mil Dias in the Mareva Vitola, and it is my absolute favorite size for this cigar. So I'm having that, and then next on deck, I've got the Series E coming up. So
very nice, very nice. Good way to smoke those too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So let's get to another question here, and the answer doesn't have to be me. I'm prefacing it that way intentionally. Do you consume cigar media, and if yes, who are a few of your favorites that you get content from?
I try. I would say that I used to consume a lot more than I do, because sometimes I think that you can kind of get drunk off of some of the praise that you can get out there. I mean, there are definitely company reviewers and things that sometimes I think you have to keep it at a distance and realize, look, man, reviews are amazing. All those things are amazing. Ultimately, consumers really are what are the end decider on a brand or a blend if it succeeds.
Oh yeah.
But obviously, I have so much respect for what you do. I think your reviews are much more in depth than most of the reviews I read. Not as just flavor components and stuff, right? But history, the brand, the blend, understanding that a cigar is much more than just the tobacco that's in a cigar. There's a story behind the blend.
Yep.
And I think that's very important to tell. And so I have a lot of respect for Cigar Dojo, Half Wheel. I have a lot of respect for Cigar Coop. I mean, there's so many, man. Hey, how about that cigar? I mean, there's just so many good people out there, and I get to do a lot of different interviews and things, especially during COVID. I was doing a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
John Huber is absolutely the spokesperson for our company, but John is a family man. He has a daughter. He's a little daughter. He has an older son. I tell guys, like, look, man, you got to interview him between 9 and 5 Central Standard Time, brother. Outside of that, he's with his family, and that means a lot to him. And so I pick up a lot of the interviews that are after that time. And I really, it's an honor for me to speak on behalf of Crowned Heads, represent Crowned Heads. And whenever anyone reaches out, I don't care if you have 5 viewers or 5,000 viewers, I always try to make time for everybody. Brian, Cigar Obsession was another one that he really works hard on building his following, and it means a lot, man. The fact that you guys have this following, you have this platform, and you invite us on, it doesn't go light. It doesn't. I don't take it lightly. I take it as a profound amount of respect to be able to do it, and so I will always try to make time for everybody. But as far as consuming it, I enjoy reading it. I love seeing it, but I always try to keep a little bit of a distance to understand that just because someone gives you a 95 on a cigar they rated, or cigar of the year, you at the end of the day, the consumer is really going to tell you what they think of that blend and what that brand does. And so I think that keeping a combination of understanding what all this means at the end of the day, but the fact that somebody will sit down, smoke our cigar, review it. If you give us a 79 or you give us a 99, mad respect to you and for what you do.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's why when I launched my channel, I did away, and I did it on my my old channel that I helped start. But that's why I got rid of the number scale, because let's face it, the majority of the number scale reviews that you see out there, if it's coming in below 90, they're thinking it's just not worth recommending to people. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have something that was just like black and white, cut and dry. I enjoyed it, and I would have it again, or I don't enjoy it, which is why I do. It's nub worthy or it's not, and there is no number. There's no other scale whatsoever. It's, do I want to have it again? Yes. Do I want to have it again? No. And that's the way that I do it, because I just wanted to make it simple and I get away from the numbers game that a lot of people play.
Yeah, and it's tough too because my friends over at Developing Palates, it's very hard. We joke with them all the time. It's hard to understand your scale, man. It's at the end of the day, do you like it? Do you not like it? Would you recommend it? And if you wouldn't recommend for yourself, who would you recommend it for?
Right.
I think that Cigar Aficionado gets a lot of hate, but look, I mean, they help build us through the industry through the boom, right? So,
Oh yeah.
If you like them or don't like them, you got to give respect where respect is due. But
Yep.
I hate looking at the rating. I like to read the little blurb they have about the cigar. But something I wanted to mention too about cigar media is what is absolutely amazing is that when I talk to the old guys, right? If they released a new cigar in 1984, the only way you were going to know about it is by going to a cigar shop.
Yeah.
Today, especially during COVID, between all the different SteamYard, Zoom, all of these different medias, the blogs, the Instagram, today's cigar consumer has so many more options to learn about old cigars, new cigars, swag, events. I think if you're a cigar consumer today, the amount of information you have at the tip of your fingers on premium cigars, it's never been that way in the history of premium cigars.
Nope.
And it's something that you and so many other guys and ladies add to the industry. I could do without the influencers, but I could. I do think that a cigar consumer today, I mean, they really have if they literally pick up a cigar, they can Google it and have 30 articles, 50 ratings. That was not the way it was in the early 90s or the late 90s. I mean, for you, C.A.O. had put out a Maduro in 1998. It was called the Universal Maduro. It was Maduro of the Year, and you had to read Cigar Magazine. You know what I mean? You had to read these Smoke Magazine to figure that out. It was different now, and so it's really incredible. The different chat rooms, and it's amazing, man. It's absolutely amazing.
Yep, it is. So one of the questions that we have here is, what is your favorite leaf?
I would say it's most people, when they ask that question, they tend to ask you really what they're asking is your favorite wrapper. I don't know if that's what this person's asking, but for me, it's not about a wrapper. I definitely have Ecuador Habano. Probably is whenever anything has an Ecuador Habano wrapper, I want to try it.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Right there.
And San Andreas, Mexican San Andreas Maduro is second to that. But I think the tobacco that I most often find myself smoking in a cigar, or when I'm down at the factories and I'm getting to play with tobacco that I'm most intrigued by, is Nicaraguan tobacco grown in Jalapa. Now, in Nicaragua, you have Condega, Jalapa, Esteli, and then you have the volcanic island, Ometepe, and then you have subregions, Pueblo Nuevo, and a few other subregions, right? But really the three big ones are Condega, Jalapa, and Esteli. But Jalapa, Nicaraguan, to me, is the most medium, complex tobacco, and really is the driving force in probably 90% of Nicaraguan-based cigars. When it comes to Dominican, I think Piloto Cubano is I'm not a big fan of Olor, which is another big tobacco that's grown out in the Dominican, but I can get down with some Piloto Cubano. But the Jalapa Nicaraguan is probably my favorite leaf, and I find myself gravitating towards more what's in the filler than what the wrapper is.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered the question.
There we go. Well, we'll see. That is the answer. I mean, plain and simple. So
there you go.
What range, or what is the perfect storing humidity range for you? There's the age old 70 and 70, or you're doing it wrong. Cubans, you want to keep lower, but where do you tend to keep your humidor at?
Well, this is a very interesting question, because when I was at C.A.O., we actually did an experiment with Boveda.
Okay.
We took our best-selling blends, our Brasilia, our Gold, our La Traviata, and all the things that were really big sellers, MX2 at the time, and we stored them from like 65 to 75% humidity, and then we literally blind tasted them, And what really came down to, it sounds so silly, but it's almost 70. It's 69%. So it's not 70. I know it's just one off, but 69 by far was the best. And I would tell people that if you talk to anybody who's really involved in the blending, in the processing of tobacco, the truth is it really depends on the tobacco. Because if it's a Cameroon leaf, it's going to need a little bit more humidity. If it's a Connecticut broadleaf, you could probably bring that humidity down a bit because it's such a thick leaf. So that plays a lot into it. But generally speaking, 69% humidity is the best. As far as temp goes, you can go down pretty far. There's a couple of shops I visit, old school shops, where you go in their humidor, you need a jacket. It's so cold in there. You know what I mean? It's not, you don't necessarily need it at a warm temperature. It can be cool, and that'll prevent any kind of bugs or things like that. Humidity is really the most important part. So 69% humidity, temperature not as important.
Okay. So what are some things from your pre-cigar career days that still help you in your current cigar career?
Well, I have, as I've said this before, I've been into business 20 years. Before I got in this business, I was a very young man. When I got in my early 20s. Now, that's very common to see reps in their early 20s. When I got in, I was the youngest rep around. Most reps and brokers at that age were late 30s, early 40s, 50s, and even 60s. So when I got in, I was very young.
Right.
But before I got into business, so I have a very short work history before I got into business, but I worked in jewelry, but it was international jewelry. It was from Mexico, Thailand, Indonesia. And that's what I did for many, many years as a teenager, all the way till I got the job with Crowned Heads or C.A.O. And I think the most important, I didn't wear a lot of the jewelry, right? But I was selling the jewelry.
Yeah.
And I take that into the industry I am in today, because I realize that not every cigar maybe I sell, I may not prefer that blend over other blends, but there's somebody out there that enjoys that, right? Super full-bodied, really strong, potent cigars just are not my thing. Understanding that someone out there's a big part of our industry that loves that, right? And so understanding that what you sell isn't always going to be what your favorite is. I told you earlier, two cigars I absolutely live on is the Mil Diaz that Pichardo makes for Crowned Heads, and then our original Four Kicks, which is made by Ernesto Perez Carrillo. Those cigars I could live on forever. But there are guys out there that want something milder. There are guys that want fuller bodied, and understanding that just what you like isn't necessarily what everybody else is going to like, and understanding that everyone has a different palate. And then from my jewelry days, understanding that everybody has different styles that they like or what they prefer. And at the end of the day, it's the consumer that makes the decision if something is popular, that's going to sell, that people really enjoy. And then it's our job, either be in jewelry or in premium cigars, to keep the quality, the consistency, and the availability there for those consumers.
There you go. So speaking of the consumers and them having to decide on their own what they want to smoke, discovering what they like, what they don't like, with all the media that we were just talking about, that you were sharing on how it is everywhere now and at your fingertips, who do you think plays, and I don't want to say a more impactful role because I don't want to diminish one over the other, but who do you think the consumers lean into more as far as making their decision of what to smoke? The person at the lounge that's saying, hey, here's what I got in my humidor, or the person that's reviewing a whole bunch of different stuff?
I think retailers may have the biggest influence more than anybody. Bigger than any magazine, bigger than any blog, bigger than any YouTube channel. The biggest influence, I think, comes from the retailers themselves. We're involved in TAA, which is Tobacco Association of America. It's a smaller organization. They're all those members also are members of PCA, but it's a small organization, gets together every year. But, just talking to a lot of them, the truth is that they can have an influence. I would say on average, 7 out of every 10 cigars that customers that come through their door, those 7 cigars, they have total control over what they're selling, what they're pushing, what they're introducing to the consumer. And then maybe 3 out of every 10 is what the consumer is kind of searching out on his own because he heard it, he read about it. And so I think retailers have a profound effect on what consumers are smoking and what consumers are consuming at the end of the day. And I think that's why many brands are so involved with retailers, getting very involved in events and supporting retailers and whatever they ask, or whatever we can do to assist them. Because at the end of the day, when a guy's in a humidor and he picks up one or two of his favorite cigars, I see it every day, man. They'll go to their retailer and say, "Hey, what else do you think I should be smoking? Or what are you smoking right now?" And so I think at the end of the day, it's retailers. Retailers have the biggest influence.
Yep, I would agree. Even being one that creates content, I'm not there when when the customers are going into the lounges and going, okay, this, I need to get that one. I don't know of anybody that goes into, a brick and mortar and says, okay, I watched X review, I need to have that one. And yeah, that it happens where they go, okay, I want to check it out because they may have influenced you. But at the end of the day, I would agree with you. It's the shop owner, it's the shop employee, the lounge, owner that really got the biggest influence. And let's face it, they've all got their motivation too. All the lounge owners, okay, well, I can sell this one because I know it's moving quickly and you may not get it again. So, hey, check it out this time. Or it could be, hey, I'm not moving any of this, so I'm going to recommend it and let's see if I can get some movement out of it. They are the ones that are absolutely, tipping the scale one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when I see a consumer out there of premium cigars, they're not only are they following John Huber from Crowned Heads, Pete Johnson from Tatuaje and Letellier, but they're also following their retail shop on social media and see what they're posting and the new shipments that are coming in. I think those retailers that have grasped onto social media and they say, "Hey, look, this order just landed, and I'm posting a picture of it. I just got in my order of Padrones, or I just got in a new LE from Crowned Heads." That causes an influx of consumers into their stores as well. And so at the end of the day, I agree 100%.
Yep. So obviously with being national sales manager for Crowned Heads, this is a unique question. Actually, I really like it. How does the Midwest cigar culture differ from other areas in the country based on your experience?
Wow, that is a great question.
I know, right?
I'm a Midwesterner, born and raised. I live in Florida now just for the last 3-4 years, but I'm a Midwesterner. I spent majority of my years in the Midwest, and this is God's honest truth, man. I think that cigar smokers, as far as people go, are not that different. I mean, the guy in Miami, the guy in Denver, the guy in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, there's so many similarities, man. It's very similar people.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've noticed about the Midwest is the retailers and the consumers tend to be a very much sharing community. I think you will not find a nicer lounge, not as far as furniture and aesthetics, but as far as people go in the Midwest. When you're in Indianapolis, or you're in Fort Wayne, and you're in Columbus or Cleveland or Pittsburgh, which is sort of Midwest, Detroit. I mean, some of the most welcoming cigar out my pocket.
Yep.
You've never heard of this cigar? I'm going to buy you one right now.
Yep.
It's amazing. And then Northern Kentucky, and that bleeds over into Cincinnati. I mean, for many years, people would launch their cigars in and around Cincinnati. A lot of people on the East Coast and West Coast would go, I don't understand. Why is everyone launching their cigar over there, And that's because the amount of cigars that are consumed in the Midwest are absolutely incredible. And the people tend to be just really good salt of the earth, good people. And that's the best way I can describe it. But it makes me very happy to say that because I'm a Midwesterner. And I think we pride ourselves on being kind, and really wanting to share in the culture. And it's pretty exciting, man.
That's awesome. So we know that you were in the jewelry industry. You got in young into the cigar industry. What advice or input, if there's somebody that watching this live right now or, catching it on the replay, they want to get into the industry, where would you recommend them starting?
Well, I think the best way to get in is become a rep or become a broker, right? Becoming a rep is really the way to go. And I can tell you, as a person who's been around a while, I get calls from Alec and Bradley. I get calls from Christoph. I get calls from Rocky, Nish, all these guys. When they're looking for someone and they know I've been in an area or I know an area well, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, is there someone out there that would strike you as a really good rep in that area?" And usually it's a It's a guy hanging out in the lounge. It's a guy that's expressed to me that he wants to get into business. It's a guy that maybe helps out at the cigar store or whatever it is. Those people tend to get the opportunities to get into the industry, and really at the very bottom level is becoming a salesperson.
Yep.
And that through that you can rise into the ranks, and take it as far as you'd like to. General Altitus have a lot of positions, and they'll post their job offerings on all the big websites, but then most of the boutique or family owned companies tend to look to their local retailers. So if you're a consumer and you're like, man, I want to be a rep, get to know your retailer, well, let them know you want to get in the industry, support that retailer. And when those opportunities come up, those are the people that get the shot and get the call to say, hey, come on, you want to get into business? Come on into business. And you don't have to know a lot about cigars. I think there's a misnomer. I think a lot of people think, oh man, I've been smoking cigars 10 years. I know all about it. That's great. But the most important thing is understanding sales, understanding how sales works, being a self-motivator. That is really, if you're not a sales guy, well, then you're going to have to look at a different position. And what are those positions? Well, working in a warehouse. Well, the majority of the warehouses are in or around Miami. You've got Naples. We're in Nashville. That's a way to get in as well. But usually sales is where people get in the quickest. Or you can just find a rich uncle, borrow some money, create your own cigar, and launch your own cigar.
There you go. Well, that leads into one more question, but I'm going to ask a different one first that was submitted. You mentioned that there are so many different boutique brands that are out there and the way that they look for, their sales force. What is it that you feel separates Crowned Heads from other boutique brands?
Well, I think that we really strive to be an artisanal cigar brand, right? What is artisanal, right? It's really about working on blends and cigars that make us unique in the sense that we stick to very traditional ring gauges. We do a lot of 46s, 48s, 50s, 52s. The biggest we go is 56, which is far and few between. But our blending, I think, is very unique because we work with so many different people, and that allows our reps to be very in tune to maybe. I'll give you an example. Here's an example. If there's a tobacco that is available at one of the tobacco wholesalers, distributors, or one of the factories we work with, and they say, look, man, we've got this incredible tobacco. It's ready to go. It's absolutely amazing. We can't use it because there's so little of it, being the yield is so low. We can't make a Romeo Julieta. We can't make it a Big Drew Estate. We can't make it a whatever. But are you guys interested? And we'll try it out. We'll smoke it. And for a company our size, we can utilize smaller batch tobaccos, smaller yields, which tend to be some of the rarer seeds that are grown in there. I think that really, I'll give you an example. I mean, CLE, I'm a big fan of CLE and Asylum cigars. The Corojo they're using, the authentic Corojo, if they were the size of General Altitus, they may not be able to produce using that tobacco. They may have to look for other tobaccos to supplement, right? Because it's a smaller plant, smaller yield. So I think with the family owned, smaller, and what we do best is take those opportunities and use them to our advantage and create really unique, exciting blends. No matter how many different tobaccos there are, different seed strains, different hybrids, and then ingredients. I tell everyone, you could get the same ingredients I get to cook dinner, and we could come up with two completely different dishes. One could be great, one could be horrible, and we started with the same ingredients. That's a lot like cigars. So we lean on the cigar makers that we work with for their expertise, and then we use our expertise to pick the final blends and also ultimately have a lot of fun with names and giving a great backstory to the blend and the cigar. And it's all very authentic. And I think that's probably the best word to describe Crowned Heads, is just being very authentic, man.
Nice. I'm going through the different, tons of questions were submitted, which is awesome. When was the first time you had the aha moment that made you feel like, yeah, I can do this as far as working in the cigar industry? When was that time where like the light bulb went off and it was like, no, I got this?
Well, when I got in, my story was that in 96, I started smoking premium cigars. In 1998, I fell in love with C.A.O. Maduro, Lenovisar Maduro, Red Label, Connecticut Broadleaf wrapper. And I remember going to the Big Smoke in Chicago. It was held at the Fairmount Hotel downtown Chicago back in the day before they moved it out to the I think of the Hilton out near the airport. But I went up to the C.A.O. family, the Ozgener family, and I said, man, one day I want to work for you guys. I love your cigars. I want to work for you. And I bugged them for a couple of years. And then finally they said, hey, we may have a job for you. And when I got the job, I was extremely overwhelmed. I mean, I always worked in sales, but I did not do traveling sales. So that was a whole nother complexity. But probably my second year into C.A.O., I won Salesman of the Year award, which at the time was a big deal for me as a young guy, working with a lot of older guys that had a lot more experience than me. And so probably my second or third year into the business is where I said, man, I think I could do this, and I think I could be successful at it, and I think I'm going to dedicate working, growing, and being the best sponge of information that I could possibly be, talking less, listening more. And so that's when I had the aha moment. And I think when a guy gets on the road or a woman gets on the road, they do this job for a couple of years, it definitely separates the people from, I like it as a hobby, oh no, my hobby's become a real job, to this is my hobby and I couldn't be prouder to make it my life's work. And so I think all of us have that moment, and there's no, speaking on brand owners, you see so many of these guys who've sold their companies and come right back to the business. This business, there's something about the business that is just absolutely a joy, fun. It's agriculture, it's sales, it's being, keeping the culture alive. There's so much more to the business that once you're in, you don't want to leave.
Got it. So you're talking about the family feel of it. When you hear a consumer say that they enjoy, the family or the unity that the industry has, does that play a role in how you approach what you do every day?
Yes, yeah. For me, representing a family-owned company, understanding that you're representing not this big corporate conglomerate, where you have 10 CEOs and different CFOs and all this, is that we're really a very small operation. And I think most companies are a smaller operation than what people realize in this business. When they visit their favorite brand and they see 2 or 3 people working in the warehouse and a couple of people in the office, they think, wow, man, I imagine it to be a lot bigger, Padron, Padron makes, I think they've said 5 or 6 million cigars a year. I think most people think they'd be much bigger than that. I think people, so I think you're representing a family company, you're representing the ethos of what they've laid down and what they hope to carry on. And as I said, it's about adding to the industry instead of taking from the industry. And I think the small boutique companies are innovators. They're the ones that are bringing the really unique. They're bringing new cigar smokers. They're really keeping, I think, the industry fresh. And I think that's part of what we represent every day working for an independent cigar company. And the big guys have a great role to play. They have such an important aspect to this business. But I think the small companies tend to be more of the people that are really influencing the future of the business. And so I don't think any of us that work for these kind of companies take that lightly. We take it lightly. We really are very passionate about what we do because of that.
Mm-hmm. So recently, we all know that Espinosa came out with the line with Guy Fieri and the knuckle sandwich and all of that. If there was one celebrity or personality that you could have do a similar kind of relationship and put out a line, who would that be?
Man, that is a tough question, because John and Mike would probably be a musician if they had their choice. It would probably be a musician. Now you got to remember, there were always celebrities involved in cigars. There's always been some kind of celebrities. Babe Ruth, 100 plus years ago. In the 90s, you had Hines, the tap dancer, the actor. He had his own cigar. You had Jim Belushi, had his own Lone Wolf. And then when I was at C.A.O., we did The Soprano. And so I think if I had my choice, I think I would do my favorite baseball player, Barry Larkin. He's retired. He's a Hall of Famer. And I feel like I don't know. Maybe that's just out of me wanting to work with the guy, be around the guy. I'm a baseball nerd, fanatic, stat geek.
Yep.
So it'd probably be a baseball player, but that's who knows if it would sell. If it was an album, maybe it would go copper. You know, maybe no one would buy it but my mom. But that to me, that's the guy I want to hang out with is Barry Larkin. So, you know, that's a little from me. But I think chefs, Guy Fieri is a perfect example of a guy who is a celebrity, but in real life has always enjoyed cigars. He's always appreciated the industry. And so he's a guy who, to me, was very genuine, not just a celebrity say, hey, I'm going to put my name on a cigar because I want to have a cool cigar and I want people to think I'm cool. But I think that's why that brand has gone over so well. I have a lot of great friends at Espinosa, Jack Toraño, Hector, everybody over there. I think that's why he's connected so well with consumers, is because he may be a celebrity, but the reality is that he's a chef, he has a great palate, and he's a cigar smoker. So it became very genuine for him to be involved in it. So I love when celebrities like that get involved.
Yeah, it was cool learning the backstory when I talked with Eric at TPE, and he was, you know, said that Guy had come up and wanted to do it a number of years ago, and Eric was basically like, no, we need to hold off. It's not the right time. It would be too much of a a gimmicky, tchotchke kind of cigar. You've got to be able to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on within the industry to know whether it's the right time or not, or at least hope that you know when the time is right or not. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here. I'm obviously wearing the hat that you can't tell if it's California or Crowned Heads, which I love. Crowned Heads and the unique way that they create their hats and the different styles. Where does a lot of that motivation come from?
So so I'm a hat geek. I've always been a hat collector. If anyone follows me on Instagram, there's a picture on there of all my hats. I mean, it's insane. My wife, I guess my wife says shoes are kind of her thing. Baseball hats are my thing. And so John's older than me. John was a hat geek from when he was a kid. And John's from San Francisco. He's from California. He wound up moving to Southern California to go to USC, and then he moved to Nashville. But when he was a young man, there was a department store that his family shopped at, and whenever he did something good in school, good grades, whatever, his mom would reward him, take him to the store and let him pick out a baseball cap. And so when he joined C.A.O., that was one of the things that he brought to C.A.O. was the idea of having hats as a marketing tool, as a great little giveaway. And he really created a lot of great swag back then. We used to get a lot of, people talk about our hats and everything. And then he carried that over into Crowned Heads. John is inspired by everything. I mean, it could be Louis Vuitton. It could be Goodyear tires. It could be, the fact that he's from California and your hat has the California bear on it,
Yep.
So John, everything is very personal to him. That I'm telling you, you could talk cigars with John for days. You could talk hats for John for days. He can talk to you about the stitching. He could talk about the different bills that have been used throughout the years, what the cardboard to plastic to all these. I mean, he gets into it all, the chain stitching and all this kind of stuff. And he carries that over as his passion is, hey, I love cigars, but I also love hats. And it's a great way. Everyone has their something. Asaka has this great coffee mug, and he has the Saka Swatch or whatever that thing's called. And then you have Drew Estate with their bags. And Rocky has the lighters and the ashtray. Everybody's got something. Our thing is hats. And me as a hat geek, I love it. I love sharing it. We do limited runs of hats constantly. We've worked with New Era. We've worked with a lot of great Dome. We've worked with a lot of great different hat manufacturers. And it's just a fun aspect we try to bring to the industry. We've worked with Ebbets Field Flannels, which is a 100% handmade, a hat made out in Seattle. We've really got to, kind of live the dream of a designer and just have fun with it. Sometimes we come up with original designs. John will come up with original looks and styles. Other times we borrow and kind of make it our own. And, we did like a Rolex style Crowned Heads cap. We did a Red Bull, and it's just fun. It's at the end of the day, it's about fun, and it's about having something that people will remember you by. And it's become kind of our signature. And I remember Saka said in an interview once, he said, look, if I'm ever going to do swag, it's got to be good. And if I do a hat, it's got to be as good as Crowned Heads. And I think that's a great sign of respect for, I think, what
Yep.
we do. You know what I mean? Cigars are always the forefront is the thing, but in your downtime, John gets to create hats and have fun with it. And so that's become our signature.
Yeah, it's cool because I remember when I pulled up and I was parking at TPE and I saw you and Ed in the parking structure, and Ed was wearing the Mil Diaz the M hat, and I was like, it reminds me of like the old Brooklyn Dodgers hat,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
that style, and I love that hat.
So that's the Ebbets Field flannel.
Okay.
If nobody knows, if people listening don't know Ebbets, you got to go to their website, Ebbets Field Flannels. This guy, he's an older guy now, but he was in a band back in like the 70s and 80s, and he would always wanted to wear like old school baseball jerseys when he was playing, and he had a really hard time finding them, right? And so he wound up creating his own company where he does replicas of basically anything pre-1960. It could be Negro leagues, it could be Latin, it could be minor leagues, really obscure stuff from Japan. But the thing that's unique about them is that from the cotton to everything they use is American made. So it is
That's
pricey,
cool.
but
Yeah.
and so we got the team up there. For us as hat geeks, they're definitely on the top of the mountain as far as really cool stuff they do. And we've done 3 hats with them now, and that's really neat.
Yeah, that was the one when I first saw it online. I was like, that's a cool hat. It reminds me of the old Brooklyn Dodgers, or the Pirates hats, Pittsburgh Pirates from the 60s and 70s. All that, and I just I fell in love with it. So what does Crowned Heads have coming up? Any projects in the works, anything like that at all, if you're even able to share about it?
Yeah, the things that we've announced, we have a Mil Diaz limited edition coming out called the Maranitos. The Maranitos is basically the Mil Diaz blend with a different wrapper on it. And it's a darker Sumatra Maduro. It's not jet black, but it's got darker, oilier tones.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is starting to ship today out to retailers that have pre-ordered it. There's a limited run of boxes that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Meal Kick, which we could not do last year. We just could not fit in the production schedule. So Meal Kick 2022 has a Mexican San Andreas wrapper. That will be shipping in about 2 weeks. So we're very excited about that. I think it's no secret that we hope to bring back Lake Carem Bellicoso Fino soon, which is another cigar. And then Las Calaveras will be something that will be debuting hopefully soon in June as well. And as far as trade show goes, we've got a lot of great stuff. I can't share anything about the trade show, but I think there will be 3 new incredible lines that will be added to the portfolio between Ace Prime, Crowned Heads, and some other things that we have coming. So I would say, just if you're a cigar geek, keep your eyes out as we get closer to the PCA trade show. That's in July. There'll probably be a lot of announcements in June, but we are always working on things. And I always say we're always working on 20 things, and maybe 1 or 2 will make it to final, debut. But John is always working on. Say, if you saw John's desk, it's just covered in cigars, blends from all different factories, and I mean, it could literally be a tweak of 1 leaf. I mean, he is really, dives deep into these samples and gives a lot of time to each one. Mil Diaz, for anyone doesn't speak Spanish, Mil is 1,000. Diaz is days. That was a blend that John worked on for 1,000 days. I mean, it's really something that we have a lot of great, exciting things that coming down the line. And I think Luciano had already announced November that he will have a new cigar at the trade show called Mas Ignis, which is based on a blend that will pair up really nice with a wine. And so
no surprise knowing him.
Yeah, no surprise. And so we got a lot of great stuff coming down the line. Again, it's about what can we add that doesn't just clog up the system, something that really has a uniqueness that deserves its place. And I think that's really something we're very proud to do. And in 10 years, we've only discontinued 1 cigar. And I think that's a track record that anybody in the industry would love to have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you've been around the industry for 20 years. Have you ever wanted to, now with where you are and you've got the access to it in the factories and all that, create your own cigar?
I did at one time, believe it or not.
I
did. When I worked for the Toraño family, I bugged Charlie Toraño until he was blue in the face. And I said, Charlie, I want to create my own cigar. And so I had recovered from a brain tumor a few years before that. I have a huge scar on the side of my head. I had a brain tumor and recovered from it, had a stroke after the surgery. So very blessed to be here with all of us. And I wanted to name the cigar Salutum. And Salutum is a Latin term, kind of cheers or celebrate, And so with the blessing of the Toraño family, he created a cigar with me that we released under the Toraño name called Salutum. It was out in the market maybe for 2 years. I want to say we maybe sold maybe about 3 boxes, as I said to my mom, to me, and maybe one of the employees. It was a lot of fun. I had so much fun doing it. I learned a lot, and it still holds a very special place in my heart. But I will say this, anyone in the industry always would love to have their own cigar. I'd love to have another one of my own cigars, but that's really not my strong suit. Signing boxes, that's really not my cup of tea. I'm really more into sales. So maybe one day, but it's definitely not on the horizon now, but I would love to revisit someday. And obviously after Toraño sold, that blend really didn't make sense for General to continue on with, because it had the Toraño name on it, but it really didn't. The story was my story. So no surprise that it's not around today, but next time you talk to Jack, you can talk to Jack about it. Jack was in the creative process of that cigar.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him next time I talk with him. So what was the blend of the cigar?
Ecuador Habano wrapper. The tobacco in the filler was majority of Jalapa, Nicaragua. And then the kind of the catch to it was that there was some Cameroon in the filler.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a good cigar, but it did really well in the Midwest, but didn't really do anywhere else.
You seem like you have a pretty similar palate to me, so yeah, I'd be curious about that one. Obviously, long since gone, but
well, yeah, I smoked my last one. I mean, I don't have any more left, but it was a lot of fun. And believe it or not, I'm telling you, once in a blue moon, I'll be traveling through Columbus or Indiana or Wisconsin or Detroit, and someone will come to an event and hand it to me and say, "Hey, I bought a box from you at one of the events. I brought you one from the box that I bought." And that's always a very special moment, man.
How cool is that? So you've obviously been able to network and be around a whole lot of people within the cigar industry, and you've seen a lot of companies come, and you've seen some companies be bought out or disappear. Yep. What would you say if there was like 1 or 2 things that are traits from the management level that help ensure a brand is going to make it?
I think being genuine and being very humble. I think that if you try to be very genuine, if you try to be realize that you may make a great cigar, you may think that your cigar is the greatest in the world, but the reality is that there's all these people that laid the groundwork for us, right? In fact, you could take it all the way back to the Taino, the indigenous people that really introduced tobacco, and then all the people that came before us. I mean, the Cuban industry is really what gave birth to the modern day cigar industry, and then obviously after the revolution, many of them fled, brought it to other countries. I think people are surprised when they go to Nicaragua, the Dominican, that culturally, you don't see a lot of locals smoking cigars. It's not culturally, part of their culture as it was in Cuba. I think understanding that, to be genuine and humble, to understand that you are but a slice of history in this long-standing industry, and that you are really adding to the story. You're not writing the story of the premium cigar industry, and being genuine about what you sell, being very honest to what you sell. When I see people come out and they're brand new to the industry and they have a Cameroon wrapper, which I know is how hard to get, or they're using broadleaf when a lot of us can't even get our hands on broadleaf, and they're using a wrapper really from somewhere else, they're calling it. I think a lot of those people disappear for a reason. It's about being genuine and being humble. And I think if you follow those lines, I think you can have a very successful company in this industry. I think, especially the guys that have sold their companies and come back in and have created another successful company, the things they have in common are they're humble and they're genuine. I think that's the most important thing.
Very cool. And jumping in here, Luciano Morelos is here. What's going on, brother? Hope you're doing well.
He's in Europe right now, so it's really late for him. Get to bed, Luciano. We love you, brother, but get to bed.
Yeah, I saw a couple pictures. I think he's in, is it Germany?
Germany,
Yep. Only good souls tonight. Nice. So we've talked about your position. We've talked about that. Let's go a little bit on the personal life, who is Miguel? You've got a family. You are a believer in Christ. We're brothers in Christ that way. Um, what what motivates you, or what is the biggest thing being a family man, that you were intentional about daily?
I think Mickey Pegg, who was my national sales manager, eventually became the VP of sales at C.A.O. Now he has a brand called All Saints. If you haven't smoked it, you should
Hmm.
check it out.
Hmm.
Mickey, I remember my first day traveling with Mickey. Mickey was a tough boss, but he was trying to make you a better salesman.
Hmm.
But one thing that he said to me my first couple days on the job, he said, when you leave your hotel and you're out there visiting stores, he said, just remember, you're not only representing the company you work for, but you're representing your wife and your children.
Ooh.
And that always stuck with me. And I think that my longevity in the industry is that I've always tried. Now we all mess up.
Oh yeah.
I've always tried to be good. I try not to be too controversial. I try to live a good life, and I try to be as honest with my retailers and consumers, and just try to be as humble and as real as you possibly can be. And my wife and my children drive my daily work ethic to be
Hmm.
a good provider. And I think as simple as, look, you can get caught up in any of these businesses, liquor,
Oh yeah.
tobacco, any of these businesses. There's a lot of partying. There could be a lot of alcohol. There could be, I enjoy a cocktail, but I don't get drunk. Um,
Hmm.
you'll never see me at a strip club. I don't partake in that. I try to bring an honest and just a good person. And so when people see me out at the trade shows, you can come hang out with me, and you're gonna be in a safe area. You're not gonna be pressured to do anything, and it's just about having cigars and that brotherhood.
Hmm.
That's what drives me every day. So my belief in Christ, being a good Christian, and when you make mistakes, say you're sorry. You know, do what you can. And my wife and kids. Look, when I got in the industry, I just got married. When we didn't have kids yet, and then having kids and understanding what that means and that profound impact you have on these humans that you brought into the world. and
Yeah.
and I think that whenever the day comes for me to retire or step aside, I hope that people say, "Hey, man, the one thing about Miguel you could always count on, and he was a good guy. He did what he said he was going to do, and that he cared deeply about the people that he worked with." And so that's probably the best way I could put it, man.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we've got multiple different mutual friends, but Brandon Wells, who you know very well, no pun intended. But he's and you've been in Arizona or whatnot. He's like, oh yeah, and I'm gonna go grab a bite with Miguel and do this, and I was like, oh man, I wish I could be there, because there's this sense of down to earth, like you mentioned. There's just this like sincerity about you, and there are many people in the industry that are that way, and that's what draws me into the industry. Is there are people that you meet them, and they're just a real person, whether it be you, whether it be Ed, whether it be
Yep.
Luciano or John or anybody. I mean, one of the cigar brands that I'm fortunate to call basically families, the Cuevas family. I
Oh,
know that the Cuevas family and
yep.
their story and all of that. There aren't very many industries around anymore where the family values and the sincerity and being genuine and being honest still exists.
I would tell you that the Cuevas are probably some of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. They are true hard workers, and they are a company that gives more than they take. And I think that when you're around those people, they're the best part of the industry, right? The good people that want this industry to grow and be inclusive, bring in people of all different walks of life. I mean, when you go into a lounge today, black, white, Latino, Asian. I mean, there's gay owned shops, there's black owned shops. It's to me, it just really kind of shows that the industry is very welcoming, because at the end of the day, no matter if you're a Republican or Democrat or independent, what really kind of unites us is this belief and the love of the industry and the love of its history is really what we're smoking, right?
Hmm.
And that I think connects so many different walks of life. I think the first time I experienced that was when I was hired by C.A.O. many years ago, and I got to go to Detroit. And I remember doing an event in a suburb of Detroit, and you literally had guys that worked at the same car company, some guys that worked on the line, some guys that worked in the office, and you had like a vice president there, all smoking the same cigar, talking about their families. And I thought, this is really kind of what the industry is all about. And to me, that's something that's never lost on me. That's something I always promote. And for the most part, you know, I do. Obviously, there's a lot more men that smoke cigars than women, but there are a lot of women that now are entering into the cigar culture, and they're walking into these stores saying, man, I always thought this was more of a boys club. And I said, man, it's changed a lot over the years. And you walk into a shop, you have so many women there. They have women night, and there's so many great women in the industry. You know, Linia Fuente is one of them. Michelle Stewart, who's a rep for CLE out of Chicago, she's one of them. There's just so many great people in the industry. And that's what I hope. I hope when people who smoke cigars interact with us, there's always a few bad apples, right? But I hope that when they interact with us, they say, man, this not only is this a kind of family-driven business, but it's a family value business as well. And I think Luciano brings that big time with Ace Prime. Ace Prime is not just a factory in Nicaragua. I always tell people, I always joke that Luciano, I think, uses the factory to do good deeds for other people. He makes phenomenal cigars. He makes great cigars, right? I mean, absolute incredible blends. But a big part of what he's doing is giving back to the people of Nicaragua, from food to beds to medicine to childcare. Those are kind of things that happen that people don't always see. And that's a big part of what a lot of guys in the business do.
Yeah, and the ones that are believers in you know, their own unique way, it's a form of ministry for them. It's a way that they can, you know, support others, love others, and do ministry, provide for their families, and give those opportunities. Which again, this is one of the only, or one of the few industries where that still takes place, where it's a, you know, I care more about your experience. I don't care whether you buy the cigars for the rest of your life that I make, but I care more about your experience, who you are as a person. And that's what I enjoy about, you know, about the industry. There's no pretenses, you know, and like you said, there's a few bad apples. You get that anywhere, but there's no pretenses. It is a genuine, I really hope you enjoy what you are smoking. And if I'm a small part of that, it's even better. And if not, you're still part of the industry and the community.
100%.
Yep. So with all that being said, where do you see, because you talked about the industry and women coming in, and, you know, how shop owners are, you know, all the different people that are here on earth, and the makeup of the industry, where do you see the industry in 5 years with all the different, I don't want to get into the FDA and the vape and the cigars. I don't want to get into any of that, but where do you see the industry in about 5 years?
Well, to lightly touch on the FDA thing, we have guys like Rocky Vittel, Mike Conder, Luciano, Alan Rubin. There's so many great cigar makers and manufacturers out there that are fighting on our behalf. PCA, Scott Pierce. Look, it's in good hands. I feel very positive as far as where our industry stands legally over the next 5 years. I feel really, really good, really positive about it. On the other side, I feel that the tobacco that is being produced right now is the best tobacco that's probably ever been produced. The quality, the consistency, retailers have been very healthy as far as their businesses. I'd like to believe that in 5 years, our industry continues to be strong. Our PCA trade shows and other trade shows that we have continue to grow. And I hope that we continue to get the message out that our industry is really about unifying. It's not about, you know, addiction. It's not about advertising to kids. It's really about adults making adult decisions, enjoying a premium hand-rolled cigar. And I always remind people that are very anti-tobacco or whatever, you know, I have discussions with some of these people, and I remind them, I say, look, tobacco is an American product. It is from the Americas, South America, Central America, North America. It is in our roots of our history.
Oh, yeah.
Our founding fathers of this country grew tobacco. Tobacco helped America become what it was. It is such an ingrained part of our culture and our history that instead of rejecting it, I think we should embrace what tobacco is and really the amazing things that tobacco has done. The funny thing is that when you think about Native Americans, from Taínos to Navajo to the Caribs and the Caribbean. When you think about all these natives, they used tobacco as a ceremony, and it was about getting together and smoking and creating community. And all of these years later, cigars are about creating culture, creating community and unity. It has not changed. It is still what it was to the indigenous people of the Americas. And it's something we shouldn't be ashamed of. And I think over the next 5 years, I think a lot of great companies are having incredible success. The import of premium cigars are up. That means to me two things. It means, one, people are enjoying the product. We're making a better product that people are enjoying and buying their hard-earned money on. So it's a very healthy place to be.
Yep.
And then two, when you have more cigars being imported, you have new people coming into the business, people that are smoking cigars for the first time, or people that dabbled in it years ago who are now saying, you know what, I really like cigars.
Yep.
I'm going to make it part of my routine. And so I think in 5 years, I think we're in a very healthy place as an industry. And I think consumers are all that success is due to the consumer responding positively to blends, to marketing, to all the great things that are coming out of cigars right now. And I think every company has a lot to do with that, and we all play a role in it.
Absolutely. So stemming from that and the consumers, we all know that during COVID, with everybody working from home, they were buying. They were trying to keep up with the demands on the production, from, shortage of boxes to, we have to limit the number of rollers because of spacing, because of COVID, all those different things. Do you currently see a dip at all because people are back at work, or do you just see it being flat and consistent or increasing?
I don't know if we'll see an increase, but I don't think we'll go back to the numbers that were pre-COVID. I think we're going to be somewhere in between, which I think is a healthy number. Cigars are a lot like liquor, right? So there was a bourbon boom a few years ago. And a lot of consumers would say, man, I can't get my favorite bourbon. What the hell's going on? Well, what happens is that if you have a boom today, if you're in the liquor industry and you're making aged spirits, or if you're in the premium cigar business, the reality is we would have had to plan for that boom 5 or 6 years prior, right? So there's no way that you can predict those things. But I think for the most part, the cigars that were coming in were quality, consistent, and of course, there's always going to be shortages because tobacco is a product that is grown, not manufactured, and I think we're going to level out a little bit. I think that's just natural. As long as I've been in the business, it's kind of gone like this, but it's shot up because of COVID, and I think it'll level out. But I think the guy or gal that's smoking cigars now more than they ever have, they're not going to go back to one a week. I think they've enjoyed quite a bit more of them and have really decided that this is something they want as part of their kind of weekly, daily routine. So I think you'll still see it. And events are coming back, which is a big boom. I think you'll see a lot of consumers that are re-interacting with brands. I think it's all positive, man. I really do.
Yeah, Ed was out here in Southern California a couple weeks ago, and I'd, chatted back and forth with him, and it didn't work out to meet up with him. But the fact that, the reps, the brokers, they're all getting back out on the road. They've been on the road for probably a good 6 months now at this point, getting back out there and doing things. But it's reassuring, and it's good to see that all of the stuff that was pre-COVID and some of the stuff that launched during COVID, I mean, live shows like this and the reviewers and all of that, it's I guess the best way to put it was when I was at TPE, the feeling there was like, oh, we're back, we're stronger, so let's just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and I think you see that from every level, right? I think you see that from the manufacturers, the tobacco growers that create the raw product, and people have invested into expanding their factories. They've invested in the printing companies are investing in more equipment to print bands, and box factories are expanding. And that all comes from a good feeling, understand that we're in a really good place. The United States of America is the number one consumer of premium cigars in the world. And I think that our appetite for premium hand-rolled cigars of quality and consistency is higher than it's ever been. And I think that with the reps getting back on the road, events coming back, these kind of shows, there's a connection that's been made that I don't think is going to disappear. I think these connections that people have made are long, and people that have tuned into your show are going to want to continue this relationship they have with you, continue the relationship that they have with the brands, and I think it's pretty amazing. I know that I look forward to my kids introducing them to cigars when they become of age and passing on the love and the culture. And when I do these events and I see someone bring their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law a couple times, and they said, listen, I smoke a lot of cigars. You want to know about them? Why do I spend so much time? Well, I'm going to bring you to an event and you can meet everybody. And it's really neat to meet some of those people and they go, okay, I get it now. I get it. And people like you and help bring these stories to people out there, and it means a lot, man.
That's awesome. So as we start to wind this down, everybody watching, if there's any more comments or questions, give the last couple minutes for that. But so you've gone from, a few different companies, you've grown, you've improved. Where do you see your next step in the industry, or is there a next step?
Well, I think for me, I can only speak personally on
Sure.
my experience. I do a lot of still day-to-day visits. There's a territory that I've never filled. It's my old Ohio, Michigan, Western PA territory that I've always, even though I live in Florida, I still hold it close to my heart. With my role as far as with national accounts, distributors, wholesalers, catalog, and a big part is international. With that taking up more and more my time, I'm working on hiring somebody new in that territory to take over my old love and joy of Ohio. And so that will lead me into spending more time doing international and other sales that I can focus on. And hopefully more product development with John, get to work on some things. I think as a sales manager, part of your job is to see out there that maybe we're missing the boat on something, and then saying, hey, can we do this, but do it our way, kind of carve our own path with it, and do this, but do it the Crowned Heads way. So I think that's where my role hopefully will continue to grow. And that's really what I hope to really expand into. And that's really what my goal over the next 2 years is continuing more on international and adding more salespeople to the team. So I may not be in stores as often as I like, but it's part of the growth and bringing new blood into the business and having someone come in and enjoy the industry as much as I have.
Nice. We got one question here from John Pipes. I'm typically drawn to cigars I haven't tried by their bands. How are the band designs decided on, created?
Well, every company is different with their bands, right? So it's interesting because I'm a big historian of premium cigars. So let's take an example of General Cigar, right? They own the brand Partagas, Partagas in English, right? Partagas. Now that's a brand that has had the same band for 100 years, and so General tends not to go too far off of what the original Cuban brand looked like, you know what I mean? And if you look at the most successful H. Upmans and things like that they've done, they tend to keep the band very traditional. So if you have an old brand, or the Fuentes are a great example. Most of their bands, they may add a little embossing, they may add a little gold flare, but the bands have pretty much stayed very consistent. Padron is very much the same way. But when you're introducing new brands that have no history, right? So that's Crowned Heads, Alec Bradley, Rocky Patel, Tatuaje. We tend to be able to have a little fun with our designs. So for us at Crowned Heads, there's one brand we do called La Imperiosa, and we really took inspiration. That's an old Cuban brand that was around since the 20s and 30s. So we took that band and just changed the colors on it a little bit, stayed very traditional. But then there's another band where you have the Jericho Hill that I was talking about earlier. If you look on the cover of Jericho Hill, the band, it looks like almost a police badge. You have the check marks from the time you're doing in jail. You have our Crowned Heads logo, and you have other things that really go back to why the brand is called Jericho Hill. And it's a black band, and it's a song by oh Lord, my mind is going crazy. The Man in Black, help me here.
I don't know.
Shoot, anyways, but he has a song called Cocaine Blues. And in that song Cocaine Blues, in the song, they reference a town called Jericho Hill. And so, yeah, Johnny Cash. And so the cigar's not called Johnny Cash, but the branding definitely takes inspiration from Johnny, takes inspiration from the song Cocaine Blues, and that's also where our cigar Juarez that Luciano makes for us
Such a good
also
cigar.
takes its name from that song in Cocaine Blues. Four Kicks is a song by Kings of Leon. And in that song, if you look on the box, there's two guns that are crossed. And in that song, it references the guns and fighting. And so a lot of that comes from that inspiration. And I would say that Luciano also in his Fiat Lux and his Dreamer band, there's a little kind of some hints to Masonry and his background and his Christian belief in the Fiat Lux. And so that's really where we take inspiration as far as bands go. Is we have a Series E. The Series E. John was listening to Eruption by Van Halen, and that was a big inspiration for. After the cigar had nothing to do with it at that time, but he was listening to music, and it sonically kind of related to what he was smoking, and so it kind of related into that band. So that's really where we kind of take our inspiration from. Whatever John's listening to, seeing, thinking about at that time. And if you get into bands, if you get into the design of bands, there's not a lot of reasons why bands are. Back many years ago, you'll see on like old bands, they had gold coins on a lot of things, and those coins represented awards that they would win for their tobacco. And so it's really, you could talk about it all night because there's so many little intricacies on why things are what they are. John did a series of videos years ago on YouTube. They're still on there. It was called Da Vinci Code, and he broke down every logo, every reason why this is there, and those are kind of fun to watch because we don't go to a group of guys and say, hey, this is our design. What do you think? Give us an up or down. John thinks of all of it, creates it, and then puts it out to the world. And I really respect that a lot. And so every company takes a different approach, but that's kind of our approach.
Nice. Very cool. Well, as we wind down, it's been a little over an hour. I want to respect your time and everything, but anything you want to leave everybody with or any?
Yeah, man. I would say that to everybody that's I think tuning in, thank you for giving your time to listening to us talk and to you for spending your time on creating content that people are consuming and learning about premium cigars. I believe, and I said this earlier, if you smoke one cigar a week, if you smoke 10 cigars a day, if you make videos, if you review cigars, if you sell cigars, if you make cigars, all we are all doing is carrying the flag of this industry that was laid down by people whose names have been forgotten because of history that did this before we did it. And I think that all of us have a role to play and a story to play in keeping this industry alive and well for the next generation. Cigars are a thing that I truly believe is a product that I have no problem introducing to my own children and saying that, you know what, this is something that's in our heritage. This is something part of our culture, and it's our responsibility to make sure that it survives for the next generation. So I think that's what I would leave everybody with is thank you for supporting the industry, and thank you for being a sentence in a book of premium cigars that we are all putting our time and effort into.
There you go. What a great way to put it. Well, brother, I want to thank you for the time. It's always good sitting down and hanging out and catching up with each other. But you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to just sit here and talk and answer questions that people have put out there with the goal of building the community. Like I said at the beginning, this is part of the Cigar Community Builders series as far as interviewing people that are within the industry and they're part of it. Like you mentioned, they're a small part of it, but when you put all those small parts together, we get a really, really incredible industry. So thank 100%. You for your time. And yeah, we'll be talking soon. So
thank you, man.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this interview. If you have any questions at all, put them in the comments and I'll get them to Miguel. We'll do what we need to, but thank you for watching. And yeah, that's going to do it. All right, everybody, I'm Cigar Show Tim. As always, we'll see you.